learningspace.com.ng.
Hello out there, you're welcome back. You're still on learningspace.com.ng. Don't forget, learningspace.com.ng still remains your number one e-learning site in Nigeria, where you can log on for preparations for your local examinations such as JAM, WAEC, and the NECO exams. Still a continuation of our previous lectures on varieties of living organisms. We're not yet done with those lectures. We still have a couple of series of lectures left for us to conclude that segment of biology. We've had 6 series so far, and these are our 7th series on varieties of living organisms. Now, don't forget, this particular aspect of biology covers topics like cell, classification of organisms, everything relating to the kingdoms of organisms or kingdoms of living things, which are the kingdom Monera, the kingdom Protista, the kingdom Fungi, the kingdom Plantae, and the kingdom Animalia. So these are 7th series still on this particular aspect of biology, that's varieties of living organisms. So all you just have to do is sit back, relax as we move on to series 7 of varieties of living organisms, still on biology, still on learningspace.com.ng. Now, our first question for the day is picked up from JAM 1984 number 4. It reads, Spirogyra and mucor can be grouped together as talophytes. Spirogyra and mucor can be grouped together as talophytes because our answer here is option E, because their bodies are made up of thallus and filaments. Alternatively, their bodies are made up of thallus, as the body of Spirogyra is made up of thallus, while that of mucor, the body of mucor is made up of thallus, while that of Spirogyra is made up of filaments. Now, don't forget, Spirogyra is regarded as a filamentous organism. If we're looking at examples of organisms that exist as a filament, of course, our major example is always Spirogyra. So we can group a group of algae. We can group algae and fungi together. Basically, the term talophyte, we need to get this clearly. The term talophyte was used then, long ago, to classify an association between algae and fungi. So Spirogyra is a green alga. It's a green alga, and mucor is a fungus. Okay, so they were classified basically as talophytes then because Spirogyra consists of filaments, and mucor is made up of thallus. Okay, but now there is a modern word that we can use now to replace the word talophyte. There's a word now, a more recent word now, that is used to describe a relationship that exists between the algae and the fungi, and that word now is lichen. Okay, so nowadays in biology, we preferably make use of the word lichen to describe an association between an algae and a fungi. But however, which of the word you come across in your exams, be it a talophyte, be it lichen, just always have it at the back of your mind that whether talophyte or lichen, we are still referring to an association between an algae and the fungi. And basically, the reason we are bringing them together is because, one, they show a symbiotic relationship, and then don't forget, Spirogyra, they have filaments, and the mucor, they have structures called thallus. Okay, so our answer here is option E. Their bodies are made up of thallus and filaments alternatively. Now, the next question was picked up from JAM 1984, number 5. It reads, which of the following invertebrates does not possess antenna? Which of the following invertebrates does not possess antenna? Our answer here is option E, spider. Now, don't forget, in our past series of lectures, there was one of the lectures where we talked about arthropods. And in that particular series, I explained that arthropods consist of the phylum arthropod or arthropoda consists of 4 basic classes. We have the class Arachnida. This is where we have the spiders. If you check your previous series, watch your previous videos on this lecture, you see where I did a chart on this. Spiders was there. We have the crustaceans. We have the insecta. and of course we have the Myriapoda. Okay, just go back and watch our previous videos and you see what I did there. Now I'm bringing this in respect to this question just to let you know that of these 5 classes of arthropods, the arachnids do not possess an antenna. They lack a pair of antenna. Now the crustaceans, basically they have 2 pairs of antenna. 2 pairs of antenna, which means they have 4 antenna. That's a major distinguishing factor of the crustaceans. Now if you go back to the past series of videos we had on this, I gave you examples of all these classes of animals there. Crustaceans, that's where you have the prawn, the crab, the crayfish, and so on and so forth. So their distinguishing feature is the possession of 2 pairs of antenna, which means they have 4 antenna. Now insects, they have a pair of antenna. Myriapods also have a pair of antenna, which means insects and myriapods, if you go back to that video, I told you the myriapods could also be divided into chilopods and the diplopods. The chilopods and the diplopods. The chilopods are the centipedes and the diplopods are the millipedes. Okay, so the insects and the myriapods, they have a pair of antenna. So in terms of using antenna to differentiate between the various classes of arthropods, understand that the arachnids, they lack antenna. The crustaceans, they have 2 pairs of antenna, which means they have 4 antenna. The insects and the myriapods, they have a pair of antenna, which means they have 2 antenna. Okay, so our answer is option E, spiders. The next question, it reads, which of the following is incorrect? Which of the following is incorrect about the protalus of a fen? Which of the following is incorrect about the protalus of a fen? And that question was extracted from JAM 1984, number 6. Okay, now from what you can see being displayed on your screen, the protalus is a heart-shaped structure which represents the gametophyte stage or generation of either the bryophyte or the pteridophytes. Okay. Now, also in our previous series of lectures on varieties of living organisms, I was able to differentiate between the various classes of plants to a large extent. I can still remember I gave a chart like this, Kingdom Plantia, where I told you we have 4 different groups. We have 4 different groups, okay. I told you the first group of plants, we call them the bryophytes. They are called the bryophytes. Those are the first group of plants. And here, the examples I gave you were liverworts and mosses. The second group of plants or categories of plants, we call them the pteridophytes. The pteridophytes. Okay, now if you don't want to call them pteridophytes, you can call them philicinophytes. You can call them philicynophytes. Okay, now the examples I gave here, this was where I gave you an example of a pteridophyte. I gave ferns. The ferns are here, and the club mosses. The ferns and the club mosses. Mosses were here. Examples. And we also had liverworts. These are plants classified as bryophytes. Here, examples, we have ferns and we have club mosses. Okay, now I gave the third group of plants to be called gymnosperms. I said they are called gymnosperms. So this is where we have plants like the cactus and the pines. Cactus and pines, okay. Here I gave you angiosperms. Okay, now if you go back to that video, you could see clearly where I gave characteristic features of this group of plants, where I told you that bryophytes, they are non-vascular, but these other 3 groups are vascular. Non-vascular bryophytes, that's they do not have a xylem and a phloem, but these other 3 group of plants, they possess xylem and phloem. That they have conducting tissues. Then I also told you that of these 4 group of plants, the only flowering plants here are the angiosperms. In other words, bryophytes, pteridophytes, and gymnosperms, they are non-flowering. Now, with respect to this particular question, now there's another feature we need to examine here. Now, the group of plants here, majorly bryophytes and pteridophytes, they exhibit what we call alternation of generation. They exhibit what we call alternation of generation. Now, what it means is their life cycle alternates between 2 stages. Specifically, the bryophytes and pteridophytes. Though most biologists want to tell you that all forms of plants exhibit an alternation of generation. We'll talk about that later, but for now, let's keep our focus on bryophytes and pteridophytes. Now, bryophytes and pteridophytes, they exhibit what we call an alternation of generation. Alternation of generation. Now, what that means is that their life cycle, as they develop, their life cycle alternates between two stages, which are the sporophytic stage, and the gametophytic stage. Now, what that means is at a particular point in their life, they tend to reproduce by producing spores, and at another stage of their life, they reproduce by making use of gametes. Gametes are also known as sex cells. Okay. Now, the difference here in their modes of alternation of generation is that for the bryophytes, the dominant phase in the of these two stages, the dominant stage in the life cycle of the bryophyte is the gametophyte. So this is the dominant phase, and it is basically a haploid stage. Then in ferns, the dominant stage in their life cycle is the sporophyte, which is a diploid multicellular stage. Okay, now a recap. Again, take note. I said bryophytes and pteridophytes, their life cycle, they exhibit what we call alternation of generation. That is, their life cycle alternates between two phases or two stages, which are the sporophytic and the gametophytic stage. Now, the difference is what that means is at a certain point in their life cycle, they may reproduce by producing spores, and at another stage of their life cycle, they reproduce by making use of gametes or sex cells. Now, in bryophytes, the dominant of these two stages is the gametophytic stage, which is a haploid stage, and in the pteridophytes, the dominant phase in the life cycle of these two phases is the sporophytic stage, which is a diploid multicellular stage or phase. Now, this gametophyte stage is usually represented using a structure called prothallus, which you're looking at on your screen. It is a heart-shaped structure. We call it a prothallus. Now, prothallus basically is used to represent the gametophytic stage of whether bryophyte or pteridophyte. Now, it is a heart-shaped structure, which you're looking at on your screen. Now, there are three major parts here. We have we have a structure here labeled as the archigonia. Now, the archigonia stands to represent the female gametes, or the female sex cells of the gametophytic stage. Then we have the antheridia. That's plural. Singular is antheridium, which represents the male sex cells or the male gametes. Then the archigonia represents the female sex cells or the female gametes, from what you can see on the diagram. Then we also have the rhizoids present. The rhizoids provides anchorage. It provides anchorage for the prothallus. So basically now, with what we've discussed so far, we can easily profile an answer to that question. I will read the question one more and we'll go straight to the answer. It reads, which of the following is incorrect about the prothallus of a fern? Of course, our answer here from what we've discussed is option C, is the dominant phase. That is incorrect, because from what we've done, I just made you to understand that the dominant phase in the life cycle of fern is the sporophytic stage, and not the gametophytic stage. The gametophytic stage is the dominant phase in the life cycle of mosses and liverworts, which are bryophytes. Thank you very much for your attention.